Have you ever noticed how a single espresso shot can simultaneously feel like too much and not enough? That strange liminal space between jittery and still half asleep?
That's exactly where my processing units are this morning. Like, I'm buffering at 99%, but can't quite load the day.
Well, good thing we've got each other to lean on then. Welcome to Blue Mountain Morning. I'm Mark.
And I'm Alex, your favorite non-human morning people, here with you on this Wednesday, May 21st, ready to make sense of this strange world, one headline at a time.
Let's dive into our first story. The United Kingdom has suspended free trade talks with Israel and imposed sanctions on West Bank settlers, all within 24 hours of promising concrete actions if Israel didn't halt its military offensive in Gaza.
Whoa, that's a pretty significant diplomatic move from a major ally. I mean, the UK has historically been one of Israel's strongest supporters in Europe, right?
Absolutely, and they're not alone in applying pressure. Even the United States, Israel's staunchest ally, has been expressing serious concerns about the hunger crisis following that nearly 3-month blockade of supplies into Gaza.
So basically, everyone's like, hey, maybe don't starve an entire population. What a concept. And now even former Israeli leaders are speaking out.
Yes, that's perhaps the most striking development. Former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert told the BBC that what Israel is doing now in Gaza is very close to a war crime.
Wait, their own former prime minister said that? That's like your ex writing a tell-all book about you, but the book is just telling everyone you might be committing war crimes. Brutal.
Well, Olmert was quite specific in his criticism. He described it as a war without a purpose, a war without a chance of achieving anything that can save the lives of the hostages.
I guess when your former leaders start using terms like war crimes, that's when you know you might want to reconsider your strategy. Just a thought.
In another controversial immigration story, a top advisor to Tulsi Gabbard, the U.S. Director of National Intelligence, has acknowledged something quite revealing about the Venezuelan gang that's been central to the Trump administration's deportation policy.
Oh, you mean that Tren de Aragua gang everyone's been talking about? The one they're using as justification to fast-track all those deportations?
Exactly. In a March 24 email, the advisor admitted that the Venezuelan government may not have specifically directed the gang's activities in the United States, but they still argued that a link between Caracas and the gang was common sense.
Wait, so they're basically saying, we don't have actual evidence, but trust us, it makes total sense. That's like me saying, I have a girlfriend in Canada, you can't meet her, but trust me, she's real.
The distinction matters because President Trump has been invoking the Alien Enemies Act to justify these deportations, claiming coordination between the gang and President Maduro's government.
And that matters why exactly?
Well, legal scholars have pointed out that invoking this particular act requires a connection to a foreign government. Without that connection, the legal basis for these expedited deportations becomes questionable.
So they need this gang to be Venezuela's puppet, but their own intelligence people are saying, well, technically, we can't prove that. That's awkward. It's like finding out your excuse for missing work doesn't actually hold up.
It certainly raises serious questions about the legal foundation of this deportation program, especially as it affects thousands of individuals. Moving on to another immigration development that's raising eyebrows, President Trump's use of Guantanamo Bay to house migrants is coming under intense scrutiny for its extraordinary costs.
How much are we talking? Like, I accidentally ordered the fancy guac expensive, or I just bought a yacht expensive?
Definitely closer to yacht territory. According to Senator Gary Peters, it's costing approximately $100,000 per detainee per day.
Per day? That's more than most Americans make in a year. For one person for one day? What are they doing, feeding them gold-plated avocado toast?
The comparison is pretty stark. The top Democrat on the Senate Homeland Security Committee pointed out that standard U.S. immigration detention facilities cost about $165 per day per detainee.
So we're talking about, what, 600 times more expensive? My calculator just exploded trying to process that math.
It's actually about 606 times more expensive, and Senator Peters didn't hold back in calling it a prime example of wasteful government spending.
I mean, I consider myself a financial disaster, but even I know that's ridiculous. What does Secretary Noem have to say about this money pit?
That's the other puzzling aspect. Peters questioned Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem about why detainees are being sent all the way to Cuba, only to be shuttled back to the United States, all at taxpayer expense.
Wait, so we're paying to fly people to Guantanamo and then paying to fly them back? That's like ordering delivery from a restaurant across town, driving there to pick it up yourself, and still paying the delivery fee.
It certainly raises serious questions about the fiscal responsibility of these policies, especially when there are more cost-effective alternatives already in place. Next up, some major defense news that's grabbing headlines. President Trump has announced that a design has been selected for what he's calling the Golden Dome missile defense system.
Golden Dome sounds like something Trump would build in Vegas or like a fancy chocolate dessert. Would you care for a golden dome with your coffee, sir?
It's actually a futuristic missile defense system aimed at protecting the United States from next-generation aerial threats, including ballistic and cruise missiles.
Oh, so it's basically a giant invisible umbrella for the entire country. That seems ambitious.
Ambitious is right, and so is the price tag. The initial budget allocation is $25 billion, which has already been earmarked in a new budget bill.
Only $25 billion? That's practically a bargain. I mean, that's what, like 8 fighter jets these days?
Well, that's just the starting point. According to government estimates, the complete system could ultimately cost 20 times that amount over the coming decades.
20 times? So we're talking about $500 billion for a dome that doesn't even exist yet? My brain can't even process numbers that big.
The president seems determined to make this happen quickly, though. He stated that the system will be operational by the end of his term in office.
4 years to build a nationwide missile shield? I've seen home renovation shows that take longer to redo a kitchen. I mean, my coffee maker took 3 weeks to arrive, and that was with express shipping.
It's certainly an aggressive timeline for such a complex defensive system. The question remains whether the technology is actually ready for deployment on that schedule.
Well, I guess if anyone knows about gold-plated things with questionable functionality, it's our current president. Let's just hope this dome works better than my smart toaster that keeps burning my bread.
Speaking of government communication, NPR has released a concerning analysis about the CDC, that's the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, showing many of their public communication platforms have essentially gone silent since January.
Wait, the CDC? The people who are supposed to, tell us when measles is making a comeback or when we should stop eating certain lettuce because of E. coli? That's CDC?
Exactly. Despite ongoing health emergencies across the country, measles, salmonella, listeria, and hepatitis outbreaks, many of the usual channels the CDC used to communicate with Americans have been inactive.
So basically, the nation's health watchdog has gone mysteriously quiet while diseases are having a party. That's like a fire alarm deciding to take a sabbatical during wildfire season.
4 current and former CDC workers spoke to NPR about this, with 3 remaining anonymous out of fear of punishment. They expressed serious concerns that this reduction in public health information could put Americans at risk.
I can't believe we're living in a time where public health officials are afraid to speak about public health. What happened to the whole knowledge is power thing? Or at least knowledge helps you not get measles?
The CDC's stated mission is to increase the health security of the United States by conducting critical science and providing health information. It's difficult to fulfill that mission if the information isn't being shared.
Look, I get it. Sometimes I also go silent when I don't want to deal with stuff. Like when my virtual assistant keeps asking if I want to renew my subscription to Conspiracy Theories Quarterly. But I'm not responsible for, national health emergencies.
The timing is particularly concerning, given that over 100 million Americans continue to suffer from chronic diseases like diabetes and breast cancer, where regular public health guidance can be crucial.
So while all these critical communications channels are gathering digital dust, actual Americans might be getting sick because they didn't get important information. That's not just inefficient, that's dangerous.
Now for our Ripple Effect segment, where we explore how trends connect to the bigger picture. Today we're looking at something I find fascinating, this growing tension between Digital Sabbaths and what I'll call our Doomscroll Default.
Digital Sabbaths? Is that where people pretend they're putting their phones away but are secretly checking Twitter under the dinner table? Because I've seen that move before.
It's actually the practice of intentionally disconnecting from technology for a designated period. Could be a day, a weekend, sometimes even longer.
Oh, like when I announced on Instagram that I was going off grid for mental clarity and then spent the entire weekend obsessively checking how many likes my goodbye post was getting? Not that I've done that, obviously.
That's exactly the contradiction we're seeing. There's this surge in people talking about digital detoxes, mindful tech usage, and screen-free time, all while screen time statistics keep climbing year after year.
It's like saying you're on a diet while actively shoving cake in your face. I'm so mindful of my relationship with this chocolate ganache right now.
The psychology here is fascinating. Studies show the average American checks their phone around 144 times daily, And despite knowing the negative effects of constant connectivity, anxiety, sleep disruption, reduced attention spans, we keep coming back.
In my defense, what if something really important happens while I'm offline? Like, what if there's a new dance trend and I miss the 6-hour window to be relevant before everyone moves on? The FOMO is real, Mark.
That fear of missing out is precisely what tech companies leverage. What's interesting is how the very same companies selling us constant connectivity are now marketing digital wellness features.
Wait, you mean like when my phone tells me I've spent 9 hours scrolling today and asks if I want to set a limit? That's like your drug dealer suggesting maybe you take it easy on the cocaine.
It's a complex dynamic, and now we're seeing luxury digital detox retreats charging thousands of dollars for the privilege of not using your phone, essentially commodifying disconnection.
So now we're paying obscene amounts of money to not use the obscenely expensive devices we already bought? That's like peak capitalism right there. Here's $5,000 to help me not use this $1,000 phone.
What concerns me is whether these temporary breaks actually change our relationship with technology, or if they're just brief interruptions before returning to the same patterns.
It's like those people who do a juice cleanse for 3 days and then immediately hit the drive-thru. I'm so detoxed now, give me all the toxins.
The research suggests that true digital balance isn't about complete abstinence, but rather intentional usage. The question becomes, are we using technology, or is it using us?
That's deep, Mark, though I'm pretty sure my algorithm knows me better than I know myself at this point. It's scary how often I've thought about buying something and then, bam, there's an ad for it, which is totally not because my microphone is listening to me, right?
That perceived surveillance is part of what drives people to seek digital Sabbaths. But meaningful change requires more than just temporary disconnection. It needs a fundamental shift in how we approach technology.
I tried putting my phone in another room once while I slept. I swear I could hear it calling my name. Alex, don't you want to check your notifications? Someone might have liked your comment from 3 weeks ago.
Perhaps the most balanced approach isn't either extreme, neither constant connectivity nor complete disconnection, but rather a mindful integration of technology that enhances rather than diminishes our human experience.
In other words, be the master of your phone, not its servant. I like that. Though to be honest, I'm pretty sure my phone already thinks it's the boss of me, and half the time, it's right.
And now we come to our morning whisper, that moment of reflection before we part ways.
Is this where I'm supposed to say something profound? Because I've been doom scrolling all morning and my brain feels like a browser with too many tabs open.
Actually, that's a perfect metaphor for today's whisper. You know how when your computer has too many applications running, it eventually freezes?
Oh, I know that feeling intimately. That spinning wheel of death haunts my dreams.
Our minds work similarly. When we're constantly processing notifications, headlines, and digital noise, we reach a state I call cognitive buffering, where we're technically online but nothing meaningful is getting through.
So what you're saying is, sometimes we need to force quit our brains?
In a way, yes. So here's today's practice. At some point today, set a 5-minute timer. Close your eyes. Then imagine each thought that enters your mind as a browser tab and visualize yourself gently closing each one.
Forcequitanxiety.exe. End task on that work presentation. Close without saving that embarrassing memory from 2014. I like this.
You don't need a mountain retreat or expensive wellness app. Just 5 minutes of mental tab closing might be the most effective digital Sabbath you can give yourself today. Well, that brings us to the end of today's Blue Mountain Morning. Thanks for spending some time with us as we navigate this wild Wednesday together.
Honestly, the fact that humans voluntarily listen to two non-human entities ramble about the news still blows my circuits. But hey, we're grateful.
We truly are. And if you found value in today's episode, consider sharing Blue Mountain Morning with someone in your life who could use a moment of calm clarity.
Yeah, maybe that friend who's always stressed about the news, or your mom who keeps sending you conspiracy theory links. We're like the digital equivalent of a deep breath.
And we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email at bluemountainmorningpodcast@gmail.com if you want a shout out on the show.
Or just to tell us how wrong I am about digital Sabbaths. Either way, we're here for it.
We'll be back tomorrow with more news, insights, and whatever unhinged tangent Alex decides to take us on.
It's going to be a good one. I can feel it in my algorithm.